sometimes it's rough, and it takes all that you've got, but he's been here, just waiting for you to knock, to take his hand, and plant your feet on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock. I want to live my life on the rock.
Hi, welcome to Life on the Rock. We have a great show for you tonight. We have the Language Catechetical Institute from Gaming, Austria. They are an evangelization program that works with young people from Eastern Europe and China and forms them in the faith and trains them to teach the faith. So they're going to share their experiences and really encourage us in our own faith. I have Father John Paul with me today. Doug couldn't make it in for this show, but we're glad to have Father John Paul.
I'm happy to fill in.
Yeah, you did a great job. You know, on this opening segment, I wanted to talk about the Pope's apostolic letter on the joy of the gospel.
Sure.
A long document, but I just feel like every line of it, he's like advancing the ball, and he has a vision for the church. He has a message he wants to communicate, and it is very instructive and just full of information. So I pulled. We're going to talk about this document a lot over the next months.
Sure.
But you know, the first line of it is the joy of the gospel fills the hearts and lives of all who encounter Jesus. And you were telling me this is such a big theme for Pope Francis, this joy.
It is a big theme. Somebody did a word study of all the speeches, all the homilies that Pope Francis has given since the beginning of his pontificate. And two words really come up as cornerstones, as capstones: mercy and joy.
Right.
And we see that all throughout, especially us who went to World Youth Day in Rio de Janeiro. That was a constant theme, joy and mercy.
Right.
And this goes all the way back. It's not something that's divorced from the tradition of the church either, even from the Second Vatican Council.
Yeah.
You know, the primary document, Gaudium et Spes,
Right.
you know, joy and hope.
Right.
You know, so we see a continuity, joy
Right.
of the gospel.
You see it in the scriptures, how,
it's all
how
throughout.
faith sort of sets the apostles running at the resurrection and
Yeah.
everything. And
It
as a
should make
joy.
us happy. And,
Right.
you know, that faith, that encounter with Christ should propel us out of ourselves.
Right, and that encounter is another key word for Pope Francis, that Christianity is about this encounter with a person, Jesus Christ, and the fruit of that is joy. And he says, you know, our culture is good at giving pleasure. Technology can figure out ways to give pleasure, not good at engendering joy. He says the great danger in today's world, pervaded as it is by consumerism, is the desolation and anguish born of a complacent yet covetous heart, the feverish pursuit of frivolous pleasures and a blunted conscience. Whenever our interior life becomes caught up in its own interests and concerns, there is no longer room for others, no place for the poor. God's voice is no longer heard, the quiet joy of his love is no longer felt, and the desire to do good fades. This is a very real danger for believers too. Many fall prey to it and end up resentful, angry, and listless. There is no way to live a dignified, fulfilled life. It is not God's will for us, nor is it the life of the Spirit, which has as its source the heart of the risen Jesus. I thought, you know, it struck me that, yeah, we believers can become secularized. We religious can become secularized, caught up in consumerism, blunted consciences, and that's what he sees. That's a danger facing us.
Well, recently he had the Pope, you know, as you know, sends out a Twitter every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just continues that, what Pope Benedict did.
Yeah.
And he said in this very short Twitter, he said, "Do you have a do not disturb sign on your heart?" You know, basically, I mean, that's a pretty graphic image. I mean, imagine a do not disturb sign on your heart.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Lord doesn't want us to have that do not disturb sign on our heart. You know, like he said at World Youth Day, he wants us to let Jesus out.
Right.
You know, he wants us to share. He wants us to make room for other people, as you said.
Let Jesus out of our heart. And this document too, it's very encouraging. You know, he says, let us try a little harder to take the first step to become involved. You know, I interpret that to mean like, who are those around you? Who are those that God's put in your life, family, friends, or whatever, that maybe could be helped by your faith? You know, you could show them the way. He says, and this is way back, this is paragraph 49, but I think this captures his total motivation, everything he does. He says, let us go forth then, let us go forth to offer the life of Jesus to everyone. Here I repeat for the entire church what I've often said to the priests and laity of Buenos Aires. I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting, dirty, because it has been out on the streets, rather than a church which is unhealthy from being confined and from clinging to its own security. I do not want a church concerned with being at the center and then ends up being caught up in a web of obsessions and procedures. It should disturb us and trouble our consciences that so many of our brothers and sisters are living without the strength, light, consolation born of friendship with Jesus Christ, without a community of faith to support them, without meaning and goal in life. Boy, what does a Christian have to bring to the culture? A community, you know, the purpose, meaning of life. You know, we can share our joy, what we experience in our friendship with Christ. He says, more than by fear of going astray, my hope is that we will be moved by the fear of remaining shut up within the structures which give us a false sense of security, within rules which make us harsh judges, within habits which make us feel safe, while at our door people are starving, and Jesus does not tire of saying to us, give them something to eat. I thought that's his whole mission there, it's a mission statement, you know.
He's been great in telling us just to get out there and do something. You're not perfect. I mean, Jesus came to call us sinners. You know, the church is a hospital for sinners, a refuge for sinners, and that's what the sacraments are for. In the sacrament of baptism, you know, that we celebrated, you know, recently, that you know, the sacrament of penance, you know, that those of us, you know, sins that we committed after baptism are forgiven, and the Eucharist, you know, to continually strengthen us. And you know, the Holy Father said, don't be concerned about going out there and being perfect. You know, just go out there. We're going to make mistakes. Just go out there and try. If
we get in a closed community, we come up with a bunch of rules that people on the outside, and I'm not talking about the moral law, I'm not talking about 10 Commandments, but we can come up with a certain rigidity that isolates others. And he's saying, break out, you know, to invite all, to be with all, to accompany all in their journey. Well, we've got to take a quick break. We'll be back with the Language and Catechetical Institute from Gaming, Austria. Don't go away. Back in a moment. Hi, welcome back to Life on the Rock. Tonight our guests are the Language, we have representatives from the Language and Catechetical Institute in Austria. And we have Jenny Healy, Annemaria, and Meghan Schofield. And Jenny, you've been on the show before about the Institute. I'll start with you. You're a co-director. Can you tell us about the Institute and its purpose?
Sure. The Language and Catechetical Institute, or LCI, which is easier, was founded in 1992 in response to John Paul II's call for the new evangelization. So this was following the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of the Soviet Union, and John Paul II said, we've witnessed the collapse of these ideologies. It's time for a new evangelization. It's time for the church to commit all of her energies to the mission to the peoples. And for the first time in decades, it was possible for Catholics in the West to give concrete support, in the open, I mean, to Catholics in the East. And so we began as a outreach program of Franciscan University of Steubenville. It has a campus in Austria, a semester abroad program, to give education to Catholics from the former East Bloc. And so our students come for 2 semesters. They live in Austria. We teach them English language as a practical tool so that they can get a good job, they can be translators. and we give them education and formation in the Catholic faith, the basics of the faith, and a lived experience of the Catholic faith, life in a Catholic community.
Right. And even the USCCB was helpful.
That's right.
Yeah.
The USCCB was our sponsor for the first 8 years of the program, and they give us some support now. And they're sponsoring a project this September with LCI.
So generally the program is about a year long or 2 years? Or?
It's generally 1 year long. There are some exceptions where students will come for 2 years, as Annemaria did, where there's a need for better preparation with academic English so that someone can continue with graduate level studies in English, and also more formation. If a student stays for a second year, they can take more theology classes and learn even more.
Right. So there's a content formation, theological classes on the catechism and whatnot, but there's also kind of a human cultural formation, and that's where community formation, where Meghan comes in.
Right, right. So my role at the LCI, as well as teaching English and theology classes, is sort of to facilitate a kind of student life, a community life, the goal of which is to set up all of the right conditions for them to have a lived experience of the faith. And so we do that through our formation program with various activities, through holy hours, through dinners together, through trips, through hiking, spending time together, and just that real lived experience of the faith, and just kind of trying to draw out how the faith really just touches every aspect of your life. And through the classes and through studying theology, sort of getting a deeper understanding of the faith, and then living that out in our community life together. Yeah.
And it seemed,
sorry to jump in. No, with the aim that our students return to their homelands to then bring that light of Christ to their home communities, which were destroyed by the atheistic regimes that dominated society for so many decades.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they don't return to their homelands, we were talking about this before. I was at Steubenville for my priesthood studies for philosophy one summer, like in '96, '97. And I've said this on the show before, too. I met some Eastern European students there that summer that had all grown up in a persecuted church. And it was like it opened up a whole new world to me, growing up in Alabama with a very comfortable church existence for the most part. And but so they have something really to give to the West. And we're thinking about sharing faith with the East, but these converted people from the Eastern European, what do you think their gift is to a more comfortable Western church?
Well, in my own life, it's strengthened my faith meeting young people who have no resources around them. One of our students this year is the only Christian in her family, so celebrating Christmas for her is going to Mass and meeting some friends at a cafe after Mass. No Christmas dinner, no gift exchange, no Advent wreath at home. That gives me a lot of courage when I see that and what they're doing in their communities always amazes me too. Leading Bible studies, starting film clubs at university with meaningful discussion, youth groups and summer camps for youth. They have so much less and they do so much more.
Right.
It's very clear that they are closely connected to Jesus Christ and have the power to do that, and that strengthens my faith, and I think all who meet them.
I remember one of the students too telling me from Poland, and she remembered the persecuted church, and she said she thought the faith was healthier, stronger in Poland when the government was more opposed to it. And that was kind of something I saw in them, that they had a toughness about them that I think sometimes we lose in America, a determination.
Yes,
courage.
Yes. Although it's difficult to say it that simply, because that's true. When something's that precious and you have to hold on to it, it's stronger. Right. On the other hand, when you have as a state law that every teacher has to be atheist, I remember a student a couple of years ago, he said on the first day of school, his teacher said, "God doesn't exist. Those people who believe in God are just old fools." And he believed his teacher and never heard at home anything different, his parents being too afraid of losing their own jobs or denying his opportunity for a good career. Right. He never heard anything different, so it's complex, it's challenging.
That's one of the things that it gives us as teachers. So we sort of have these students coming in from Eastern Europe and from China and bringing their experiences that we were just speaking of. And it does strengthen my faith and reinvigorate my faith and the faith of the American students who are with us in the sense of reminding us to not take things for granted.
Right.
You know, the fact that we have, most Americans have daily mass available within a short drive, for example, whereas for a lot of the students it's not as available and things like this. And so it strengthens us and helps us to not take the mysteries for granted as we could.
I think we have a video about the LCI, and we'll show that now if it's ready.
Well, the first thing right off the bat is that you're in a completely English-speaking environment. We're the Language and Catechetical Institute, so they're coming to learn English and catechetics. And so as far as a language program goes, it's uniquely placed. You can still stay in Europe, so it's still home, but at the same time, it's a completely English-speaking environment. It's almost like a little American sort of subculture, something like that.
The whole idea of LCI was born right after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I lived that enthusiasm of the new generation. I remember my mother crying, saying, "This is unbelievable."
I left the evening train and took a walk into the pouring rain. Oh, great.
Blessed Pope John Paul II stressed in his pontificate that the Church needs to breathe with two lungs, East and West. And he said that many times, and he meant, of course, liturgically, but also, I think, geopolitically, that there are gifts in the West and gifts in the East that need each other.
It's so international that you can touch the essence of the family, of the Catholic family. I learned to honor people from different cultures, from different parts of the world.
I met normal people, humble, open, spiritual, young American boys and girls, and it was something amazing for me.
I was shocked. It was for me unexpected, you know, how people treated nicely each other in Gaming.
When I came to Gaming, there was everything about God, and I'm not really used to it. At first it was overwhelming, but...
The Carthusian cloister is it's incredible. I mean, everything was so calm, so peaceful. Just a place that I could imagine in heaven.
To be in Gaming somehow is like a retreat, but not for a week, for 2 semesters.
This is a special place where God in a special way talks to you. It's through everything, you know. All is new, and that's what I think human nature desires, to know something that is not known to you yet.
From Gaming, I experienced this beauty to speak kind of fluently in English. It was like to fly, you know, or something like that. It was beautiful.
Language is important, it's a tool, but it's not just about language. It's precisely means to be able to speak the mysteries of Christ.
I think the theology is not only study about what is God, what about God, it's also help you to understand what is your life, what should you do.
I'm not pretty sure, but I know that when it comes to the profession I would like to do, it's to teach, probably at the university, and then also try to do some translations of certain church fathers.
Homeschooling thing, I heard about it first time when I was in Gaming. Later on, I will be able to do something about it in Slovakia, because I think it's going to be needed.
Gaming is still important, that they keep the truth of the Catholic faith?
LCI definitely changed my life. I don't think I cannot imagine my life without that year.
You can kind of feel the Steubenville Franciscan University feel to that video. And that is so great that you all can tap into their community life, because they have a campus there in Gaming that maybe we could talk about that situation. The LCI students live with the Franciscan students.
Yeah. So the campus that we have in Gaming, Austria, we share with Franciscan University of Steubenville, and that's completely brilliant because that offers an opportunity to bring together, you know, people from Western culture and from Eastern culture and live together. And just the exchange that happens with that common life and that sharing is just very rich and really beautiful. And as we were saying before, each can offer something to the other, and also it's an experience of the universality of the church. You know, is that even though you have cultures that are completely different living together, we have this tie that binds us together, which is Jesus Christ, and that sort of overarches our whole life together, and it's really beautiful.
And I think that is a gift of our American culture. I mean, we take a lot of criticism in Europe for different things, but I think we're friendly, and we're generally warm and inviting, and have a giant laughter about us, I think, and things. And I think that could be helpful, right? To build
absolutely.
community.
And I think that's one of the main remarks I hear from my students. I've been there about 4.5 years now, and one of the remarks is the friendliness, the openness, particularly the openness and the excitement about talking about the faith. And the students that we get from Eastern Europe, they usually come from a faith background or that's more or less cultural. Some don't come from a faith background at all, as we were saying before. For them, it's a new experience to be so open about talking about everything related to their faith. And for them, they really, they're impressed by it, they're touched by it, and it helps them to explore more questions about why am I Catholic, how am I Catholic, what is it doing for me, etc. And
okay. Well, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back, and we're going to bring Annemaria in on this discussion, so don't go away. Hi, welcome back. And the LCI particularly targets Eastern Europe and China. To segue to Annemaria's story, let's talk about your trip to China first.
Yes, I went to China in the summer of 2008, so the Olympic summer. The Olympics were in Beijing. And I went with a large group of Americans, Canadians, Italians, and we went and we toured around the country, we saw all of the sites, we met, we were with a group, most of us were Catholic, and so we visited a lot of the churches, and we met with young people and shared about our faith with each other. We experienced the culture and the food. I had some very interesting cuisine while I was there, donkey hamburger, and you know, all kinds of things you wouldn't imagine. It was wonderful, and I had a great experience, and the hospitality was incredible. And my chief tour guide and translator during that trip was Annemaria.
Okay.
So we met first back in 2008, that summer, and then again years later in Austria through the LCI program.
So Annemaria, you studied at the LCI?
Yes.
And where are you currently studying?
Right now, I'm a student of ITI, International Theological Institute in Trumau, Austria.
How far is that from the LCI, roughly? Like
2 hours?
2 hours?
About 2 hours by car. 2 hours drive, yeah.
And tell us your story. Where did you grow up, and how did you come to the faith?
So, I'm a typical city girl. Jenny said all the time. So, and I'm from Beijing,
How big a city is that, roughly?
Wow, I really cannot tell
Yeah,
because I think it's half size of Austria.
Wow.
Twice the size, you? Or
No, half size. You know, like it's not that big yet. Yeah, but it's quite big city. I would say very international.
Very modern. Yeah.
Very modern, like New York City. I would even say.
Is it?
Yeah.
And what happened that you came to believe in Jesus Christ?
So I was baptized in 2006 when I was 21 years old. So it's almost 7 or 8 years. So it's quite a great experience. I went to church just by chance when I was in high school. So and then the day after class, I went to church and I heard the choir rehearsal inside my church. And I'm a musician, so I really like music. So so I want to know more about the music, the church music or sacred music. You guys that?
So it was sacred music? It was like polyphony, and it was like a high-end...
Oh, it's not like Gregorian chant. No, it's not like that, but it's church music.
Church music, yeah.
So, and then I was talking to one guy, and he was a doorman of my parish. So he said, well, if you want to know more, you're really more than welcome to our RCA group. So I just jumped to that group during the weekend. Right. And after 2 years study, and I have decided, okay, this is life my most desired. So, so I became Catholic.
Well, tell us, there's an interesting story when you first heard the name Jesus.
Okay, so when I was in primary school, so probably when I was 8 years old, one time I was in the one art appreciation class. So my teacher told us, okay, open your textbook, and the first page of the textbook is huge painting about Holy Mary and Jesus. I have no idea at that time what this painting about, like the meaning or. So and my teacher said, okay, so please read this introduction. So I heard my friend read it, and so I didn't pay attention because it's quite difficult to understand like such, the art thing. So, but when he says this word Jesus, I just, very nice name.
How do they
say it? So I just remember that in Chinese.
Yes.
Yesu.
Yesu.
Yesu. It's more like, I think, translated from Latin, like Jesu.
Yeah.
But in Chinese it's Yesu, but it's very difficult to write. Very hard.
Oftentimes I think of like Chinese art as like big nature landscapes, and the people are really small. Was there a difference in like the Christian art view that you noticed, or?
Do you mean Christian art about?
Like Christian subjects, like you.
In my country?
Yeah, that you would see maybe growing up, or in a book or something.
Not very often I can see such thing actually, but right now since China is more and more open to the whole world, the people, so I still can see something. Right. But not like Alabama here, no. Right. Cross everywhere, no.
And the music part of it, you're a musician?
Yeah, I'm a musician. I'm a violinist, so I'm playing one very nice orchestra in Vienna. Actually, this weekend I will have my first rehearsal in 2014. So it's anniversary of 110 years of my orchestra. Yeah. So we will perform in the Musik Flan, which is probably the best music hall in the world. I don't know, maybe.
I would think Vienna orchestras would be pretty developed and pretty good.
Yeah. My orchestra is called AOV, so it's just a short name. I'm not going to mention the whole name here, but it's really nice because everyone here is really love music. It's not play for money. It's really passion. We love music.
Right.
We want to bring the beauty to the world, to the people. So, and for me, as music is really leads me entering the Catholic Church. Without music, I will never be a Catholic. So it's very important in my life as my nutrition for my body. You drink the water, you need it.
Now that was
you eat.
That was choral music, or was that the violin?
It's very classical music.
So it was just like this type of music you'd hear at a symphony helped to lead you into the church.
Yeah, the first time I was heard in the choir. The music choir is a vocal, it's more vocal music. And then later on, soon I participated in the Mass very often. Even before I became a Catholic, I heard a lot of organ music, which I love it very much.
So in China, I'm sorry, you had a question, Joe?
Maybe that's something you could talk about beauty. You know, what is it about music or even studying the faith when you're in RCA? What is it that about truth, about beauty that really resonates within your soul?
Okay, there is a funny thing I want to mention. I have 2 violin teachers. One is in China and one is in Vienna. Both of them is great. Like, they have a very, very good technique and understanding music very, very good. So it helped me a lot. And then my teacher in China, one time he told me, do you know why each piece of music is so beautiful? So people love it. Even like 100 years, 200 or 300 years later, people are still crazy for them. Do you know why? I said, well, because of beauty, it's just beautiful thing. Like, you never think about like that. He said, no, because God made it. And he actually is a communist.
Well,
yeah.
Not God,
said,
but the teacher.
Yeah, the teacher. Oh, sorry, there's not. Wow, never know about. But he really said like because God made it.
But even the teacher who was a communist saw that it was higher than.
Yes. Yes, he said. So we'll never die. It will forever and ever, everlasting. This is you can say the word everlasting inside the music. The reason.
And God is beauty itself.
Yes, exactly.
He is beautiful. So anytime we're attracted to beauty, it's like a call to go farther, even into God, right?
Yeah, especially when I was practicing every time. Is the violin is very difficult instruments to play. So I just okay, the technique is very, very difficult sometimes. So I just pray. I said, I really don't know what should I do, and then after that, make it.
Now you studied English in China, and then
yes, it's very popular language in China. So basically, I can say it's from kindergarten. Children start.
And then, what made you decide to go to the LCI?
So I was translator of Meghan's group in 2008. So I met some leaders in that group. So they said, well, they would like to help me to learn more English and more theological knowledge. So, and they asked me, would you like to come or keep continuing to learn? I said, sure. So this is very starting point.
And how did your experience at the LCI help you, change you, or?
The LCI is as a big family. Because in the family you have so many brothers and sisters, and the funny thing, they come from different countries. You never speak common language. Oh, actually we have a common language, it's English. So, and then I learned a lot of the different culture. I had a culture shock, I must say. Like, the culture shock, they hug you all the time. I said, I'm Chinese, I'm not really used to, but right now it's no problem, really, I'm fine with that. But you really learned a lot, like you can see the uniqueness of the different cultures. And even language. We said, how did you say this word in your language? And in your language, and in your language. It's very interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there a particular thing that really struck you from that year that really, sometimes we have experiences that we kind of come back to and think about in our life, and was it the friendship maybe, or the I mean,
adoration,
or
when I was in China, even I became a Catholic, and I have never heard of this word adoration. I don't know what is adoration, really. So, and when I came here, some Franciscan student told me, do you want to go to a holy hour with us? I said, hour? I know what I mean. Holy hour. You better explain to me because I have no idea. It means 1 hour, 60 minutes, or something else. He said, just go with us. So I went to the adoration chapel in Gaming with them. So I have no idea. Okay, I asked him, what should I do right now? He just pray. I said, okay. So this is my first time. It was my first time the adoration
Yeah.
in
And
Gaming.
now you do adoration every week. is
Yeah, now I do adoration every week, and my time is 3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
It's my perfect time, and I just bring my violin with me, and then say, Lord, now we have a private concert with you. Tell me, what do you want to listen?
It's like King David before the ark. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Singing
I'm
and
doing
sitting.
such thing. Like, I said, okay, what do you want to listen? Brahms?
What was your parents' reaction to your conversion?
My parents, both of them are non-Catholic. My mother actually she's a Buddhist. So, and my father started to learn the Catholic Bible 2 years ago, which is my Bible actually. So I gave him as a gift. He said, like, I am going to Austria. I think I do not need this Chinese Bible anymore. I will have an English Bible. So and back to home last summer, we had a few conversations about the Old Testament, the old historical events. So now he's getting better and better. I think one day he will become Catholic. Just time. Pray for him.
Yeah.
And my mom, she never ever stopped me to being a Catholic. And she said, you should do it, what you're doing right now, and pray every day and go to Mass every Sunday. It's very good. My family is really open-minded, so we have no problem about that.
Did you see certain similarities between your faith and your mom's faith?
Yeah, I said like both, I think both, it's called Buddhist or Buddhism?
Buddhism.
Yeah, and the Catholic, we against abortion because we saw this is like killing the life. So, and I had certain discussion with my mom. I said, you see, we really have certain similarity. Like, don't you want to join us? Sometimes. It's just time. So.
Yeah. And your hopes? You want to return to China?
Yeah.
And be a musician.
My plans right now is to return to China and to be a musician, and also to help people who are interested in the Catholic faith or even Christian faith. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to take another break, and we'll be back with the Language and Catechetical Institute. Don't go away. Back in a moment. Hi, welcome back. And Jenny, we'll throw this one to you. What are some of your graduates doing today from the LCI?
Well, it varies. Our students come from all different fields, and they go back to all different fields. So many are in education, teaching at universities and seminaries and catechetical centers. Some are doing youth ministry. Some are working in the pro-life field, working with handicapped children, translating pro-life material. So the Rachel's Vineyard Ministries, which is so wonderful with healing after post-abortion syndrome, that's been translated by LCI students into Russian, into Chinese. Some of our students are professionals, businessmen and lawyers in politics. Some are stay-at-home moms. Each one has had this experience in Gaming at LCI that they then put into use in whatever field they go into.
And the English part of it is, you were pointing out to me earlier that it's so necessary in higher education now to speak English or to have that language.
Yes, so if students who've completed the LCI program can continue their studies at a graduate level at an English-speaking institute.
Right.
For instance, the ITI, where Annemaria is studying. Other students have gone on to Fordham University, Loyola University, other English language universities in Europe, because that grasp of the language is critical for that. And we're able, since we have a small number of students, we're able to tailor our program to their needs, whether it's for translation, academic English, public speaking. Several of our students are priests and graduates are priests.
And you all are an evangelization program. Vatican II, the Pope since then, of calling for this new evangelization. Meghan, you had an interesting phrase about the LCI's philosophy of evangelizing by way of the person.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so in the new evangelization, what's really needed is a transformation of the whole culture. And so LCI does that, how I say, by way of the person. So what that is focusing on a small group of people and somehow trying to set up a program in which they can encounter the person of Jesus Christ. And they can encounter the gospel and see the joy of living the gospel in our community life together. And that somehow that personal transformation sort of changes completely who they are and how they are. So whether they go back to work, you know, in a direct way in catechetics in their home country, or they go back to be a journalist or a lawyer or a musician, they take that personal transformation with them into whatever they do, and that kind of has a way of transforming the culture. It's an interesting thing that during the Second World War, Blessed John Paul II, one of his key things in his resistance movement was what?
Culture.
Was
Drama.
culture, was the theater, was poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that a resistance movement? Because when rational arguments fail, or when you know, intellectual arguments fail, beauty always attracts, you know, and beauty always leads you to the truth of things. And so the beauty of the arts, as we see in Annamaria's life, you know, was something that attracted her to the truth. And so that being a very important part of everything as well.
I remember Pope Francis said something to the fact that, you know, a faith that doesn't generate a culture is not worthy of its name. That in America, our tendency sometimes is to have be so privatized with our faith, but our faith naturally wants to go out, transform the culture, and also build community. I like that. That's a theme we hear with Pope Francis a lot, that the evangelization comes out of a community and calls others to a community.
Right.
So that's absolutely essential, right, that we build that.
Right, yeah, and Christ sent his apostles out in twos.
Right.
You know, and everyone needs that kind of shoring up in your faith through that community. That's sort of how we're built. It's the image of the Trinity, right, that we're made in, and so forth.
And it's beautiful that you're this being started by Franciscan, because they're just known for community with their household system and the friendliness and the joy and the culture and the campus here in America. I mean, they're going out with their youth conferences too. And so tell us practically how that community is built among the LCI students.
Yeah, yeah. So how we sort of have our program, it's the Language and Catechetical Institute. And so we teach the language, and we do that. What's the best way to learn a language, we say? We say that it's by immersion. By just going into a situation, you have to use the language. It's very difficult to look at a book and read the grammar rules and learn it on your own and be fluent. The best way is just to go and use it, and you have to you're just surrounded by it, you live in it, it's immersion. And so at LCI, we sort of take that as also our hermeneutic for it. What's the best way to learn the faith? By immersion. By just seeing it lived, by just living out, being in a place where it's all around you, it's surrounding you, and you actually, in your mind, you might know, okay, this is what the church says, but how does that look like? You know, and this is offering them an opportunity to see how does it look like. So on a very practical day-to-day level, the LCI students, they have their classes in English and in theology, because it's really important to develop a deeper understanding of the faith as well in a theological way. To be able to explain and articulate the truth about the faith as well is very important. And so they go to those classes, and then also in a typical week we have what is part of what we call our formation program. And so it's a life of prayer, study, and social activities. So we have a weekly holy hour, we have a day of community prayer, and we have a day where we all go to Mass together. And also in our social activities, we have a weekly common dinner. So it's a time for fellowship, a time for connecting, where our students cook together and just socialize. And
when I was there in the summer, studying with some of the former LCI students, on Sundays they would cook, or they would make that Polish bread that's kind of half sandwich, half bread. You know? It's very dense, and and I remember making a soup and just cutting up a hot dog, putting it, you know, it was very simple on one level, but it was fun. You know?
Yeah, and sharing a meal and sharing life with them. I mean, it's just such an important and key part of generating that community life.
Now you're in Austria, and you have this great momentum of Western culture with the symphonies and beautiful architecture, art. Do you all take advantage of that?
Yes. Vienna is about 2 hours away by car, so it's relatively close to Gaming. And so we like to take a trip there at least every semester. At least once a year, we like to bring our students to the Vienna Opera House and to see an opera. It's quite a tremendous experience. I was never really into opera before I came, and listening to it on CDs and things, it wasn't quite my thing. And then I was there,
right,
and I hear the sound coming out of these people's mouths, and it's just incredible.
Yeah.
And just to have that whole experience, it's just really wonderful. And also to see, we take our students on tours of different cities that are close to us and things like that, just to see the buildings, the architecture, the art. And once a year with the Franciscans, we go to Rome and Assisi on pilgrimage for 10 days. And that has always classically been such a moving part of the year for our students, and they consistently say that was one of their favorite parts of the semester. That faith, the place of our faith, that's really all of it's home for us.
Right.
And so it's that connecting point, and also the beauty of the architecture and so forth that really just brings the faith alive for us all.
Tell us about the richness of the mixing of the cultures, of the cultural exchange that happens.
Yes. So we have a lot of Americans that are living with us, and the Americans actually dorm with our students. So you had an American roommate, for example. And so it's really interesting because you have a lot of differences, cultural differences. And it's kind of, as you were saying, culture shock for everybody involved.
Did your roommate ever eat a donkey burger?
Not yet.
Yeah.
But I will tell her.
Difference of lifestyle, difference of habits. I mean, the Eastern Europeans, don't want ice in their drinks because they could catch a cold or something like this, and and Americans walking around in flip-flops when it's snowing out, and all these things where you look at each other and you wonder, are you even human? Like, are we the same people? And these major differences. But then because we are human, you see that commonality, and that comes out in human relationships, that comes out in sharing our faith life together. We have a church where we worship together every day. And just that, like I was saying before, the universality of the church is kind of brought right into your face, and you see it so clearly, is that it's Christ that connects us, and our humanity connects us, and there are things that, despite any cultural differences, we're the same, and there's that solidarity that you get to see very clearly and live out, and it just is very enriching, and it broadens sort of, from my perspective anyways, it broadens sort of your vision of the world and of humanity outside of just my own home, my own comfort, etc.
Right. And faith, I think Cardinal Ratzinger said that faith produces a new we, right? It fosters, and we all belong united in this incredible way in the mystical body of Christ. I mean, Christianity excels in that, in building community and uniting, and then we hunger for that, right? We're social, we're made for that. Maybe, Annemaria, could you talk about that, being from your culture and the community you experienced in the faith community?
Well, the Chinese culture has long, very, very long history. So, my country is quite long, has a long history, so 5,000 years at least. The Chinese people, I would like to say, is really generous. Like, we are really humble, actually. Like, we are really welcome the people come to our house and have dinner with us or talk with us. So in this part, I would like to say we are quite open mind, actually. And right now, China is, you can see through the news or newspaper or internet, China is really getting very stronger, much more better than 20 years ago. So I think this is a good thing for my country. And the only thing we should think about is, as I talked last time to Jenny, we do everything, we should know there is a certain prudence inside, like everything. You shouldn't go either too fast or too much. So, but you should keep going, do it, but not, very much, like. So
takes a maturity.
Yes, and then right now, and cool down and listen different voice. so from the different country. I mean, so it's not only okay, we are doing this, then we do this. So to get more advices somehow from different countries, I think it's good, because you can see the European country, especially the Western European countries, are very, very much more developed. So we can get a very good example to see how they're acting their life, how their government's doing for their people. I think this is a very good thing for China in the future. My personal opinion is this will help us a lot.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the show and sharing your experiences. So.
Thank you.
Well, may our Heavenly Father shine His face upon you. May He give you His peace, and may Almighty God bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.